Welcome, this is Judith Royal, and this is your archetypal astrology weather forecast. And I'm recording this on the auspicious new moon in Scorpio, November 15th of 2020. This begins a lunar cycle. Well, a new moon is always a new lunar cycle, but this one is going to take us up to exactly 1 month from now, December the 14th, when we are going to have a total eclipse in the sign of fiery and adventurous truth-telling, above all truth-telling, Sagittarius. So this is a particularly auspicious month as we are at the tail end, the tail of the dragon, finishing at this very same month. We are finishing that shift, that's huge change that came upon us in January of 2020 that marked the new 500-year cycle that Saturn and Pluto together made an alignment that they only make once every 500 years. And it is one that is insistent on integrity and fairness and equality for all people. So although it looks like quite a mess on the world stage right now, that's not really what we're seeing. What we're seeing is the natural consequences, the natural denouement of a long cycle, in particular a 2.5-year cycle of Saturn, in which what is meant to happen is the crumbling of the old patriarchal domination and the birth or the dawning of what was already there in the beautiful Aquarian spirit that we begin with the winter solstice of 2020. Now, let me back up to the present, November 14th, 2020, and give you some of the details of, well, the personality of this month coming up. Certainly in Scorpio, we expect intensity. There's just no way around that fact. And we are experiencing intense times when we look at the world stage, but in our inner lives, I feel the Scorpio initiation is saying to us that we really need to take our spiritual life, the things that we know from our 2020 vision, not of the body's eyes, but of our own collective consciousness from the level of the soul where we are all one. We need to take that beautiful understanding and ground it into the day-to-day life that we lead here on the planet Earth while we are in these bodies that are such helpful vehicles for us to bring our message. And so the Sabian symbol for this Scorpio new moon, 23 degrees Scorpio, is crowds coming down from the mountaintop. And remember, Capricorn is the mountaintop symbol. So crowds coming down from the mountaintop after hearing an inspirational sermon, like a Sermon on the Mount, but an inspirational message, and then grounding that spiritual experience into their daily lives. And most definitely, we always have challenges. And yes, it can be all too easy right now to backslide because the new way, the shift, is not yet grounded in our daily lives. And so it's a little disorienting for many people. But we have to find a way to have our higher consciousness be our guide in our day-to-day decisions. And we get help with that now from the God of lightning. Well, help might not be the right word. It might be more like the shocking awakenings, because even when we're well grounded, being hit by lightning is out of the blue and a surprise, and we don't feel ready for it. And indeed, we're not ready for it. Things now are becoming very brand new. So the way we are thinking, which is, of course, our attitude, the only thing that we can control, because through our attitudes, of course, that's how we perceive the world. And so right now we also have Mercury, the messenger planet, in the sign of Scorpio with that moon and sun in Scorpio. So that's quite alignment for doing a little bit of detective work. Remember, Scorpio loves to get to the bottom line. And part of the intensity of what we see, what we're all feeling, is this relentless and powerful search for the truth in terms of going to the very bottom line. Scorpio is never satisfied with anything superficial. So, for example, we have the relentless and actually tiring counting of every single vote in the presidential election in America right now. And there is power and there is wisdom in doing that. So the Scorpio shaman, like Ruiz's Four Agreements, that shaman energy might remind us that, yes, we do not want to take anything too personally, and that we are people of our own word. That is the main thing with integrity, that if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And if I find I'm not able to, I also just say that. What a breath of fresh air is coming our way, because that long tail of Capricorn and the new shift that is ending, it's really ending in a sudden way, because December 20th and December 22nd, so sandwiching in the winter solstice on December 21st, the big planet Saturn, who is that 29-year guy, it takes 29 years for Saturn to make one orbit. And Saturn's orbits are one of the most precise timing devices that we can have for what's happening in our personal lives and in the world. Because Saturn represents the structure, like it rules the skeletal system. So it's the structure of our lives. And when the structure of our lives is changing, that's a very big deal, right? So that is happening, and Saturn moves out of Capricorn after 2.5 years in that one sign, and will be in the sign of humanitarian Aquarius. And side by side with him has been not only Pluto, but Jupiter. Now, Pluto's really a slowpoke, so he's not going to be moving out of Capricorn for a very long time. But Jupiter spends 1 year in one sign. And so also around the solstice, Jupiter moves into the sign of Aquarius. And they do that so close together that, of course, it brings us a conjunction, an exact pairing between Saturn and Jupiter. So we are going to see, well, we're going to feel finally that big breath of fresh air. You know, there has been that very sad sort of slogan passed around here since January in particular, but all through this year, and on Memorial Weekend, of course, with George Floyd's death, I can't breathe. And I know personally, I have felt some of that, especially when I have not spent enough time in quiet time. I can definitely feel breathless. And then with the pandemic, then we had to wear masks. And if you know about the story in California, we've also then had smoke in the air that it's not good to breathe. So there are so many different symbolic and metaphorical ways that we've been getting this message of, I just can't seem to catch my breath. It's all so fast. How can I really find and stop and really exhale completely so that I can take in the new? So I exhale the fear so that I can breathe in the love. And Warrior Mars is in here saying, we're going to put practical feet on that love. And as of Friday, the 13th of November, Mars turned direct in that sign of fiery warrior Aries. So after a long period we have had throughout all of this past summer and up until now, we've had so many planets retrograde that it was hard to get anything moving really forward. And that shifted on Election Day in America, November 3rd, when Mercury, the planet Mercury, went direct, had been retrograde and went direct. So we got we are continuing to get clarity of messages and ideas. And now Mars goes direct and says, okay, come on, let's do it. So this is the pioneer. So it's no accident that we now will be seeing that all that behind the scenes work that our brilliant scientists have been doing to bring us medicines, to bring us vaccines, etc. It could not find a place on the world stage in our lives until now. It simply wasn't time. It's a very powerful event when the planets, especially Mars, turns from retrograde to direct. And, that's just an optical illusion from Earth, right? The planet never goes backwards. But it's how we see it, which is what matters to us. In any case, what that really means is that laser beam focus. So for the entire month of November, for example, the first half being retrograde, the second half direct. For the entire month, Mars doesn't move more than 1 degree. And so when I was out for my walk last evening, you can see Mars in the eastern sky. It is so beautiful, and you can't miss it. It's orange. It's literally orange. And you could just feel the vibration of that warrior energy, that beautiful fire, saying, let's create, let's pioneer, let's blaze a new trail. That is really the message that Mars wants to bring us. So in addition, you see how that's so perfect here at the tail end of this new beginning, this new 500-year cycle, because while it's very necessary for the old to crumble, for the patriarchy to crumble, so that there is space, there is new ground for us to build something brand new. And that's the job of this Mars energy. Looking up at those archetypal energies and remembering that archetypal energy is in our myths, in our histories. And so a spiritual tool that through a bunch of synchronicities I have found very useful right now, I want to share with you. And it's a story. So storytelling is, of course, the best way to embody a spiritual principle. Is one of the wonderful ways that you can give it practical feet. So if you remember in The Wizard of Oz, there was a witch. Well, there were 2 witches, but we're not talking right now about the good witch. We're talking about the green witch, the bad witch. And she had these monkeys. They looked rather off-putting, you know, not friendly or any monkeys, but they were flying monkeys. And she would routinely send these monkeys out to do her bidding. And of course, her bidding, being that she was evil, her bidding was to go and wreak havoc or bring back to her some proof of the success of having accomplished the evil deed she asked them to do. Well, I operate that same way when I am in fear. And, you know, evil is nothing but that state of fear that any of us have. We all have it. So when I think about myself as that witch, and I have had many of occasions, especially as we were going through these protests and the electoral business here in America, to think, oh my, it's all falling apart or whatever. But that fear, I then do like that witch, and I send out, like monkeys, like flying monkeys, I send out thoughts into the world, and I collect evidence of what I want to see. Right? So, I mean, the witch did not send those monkeys out there so that they could bring her back tidings of great joy. No, they bring back to us witness of what we desire, of what we say we want. Now, I don't sit around and say I want to be in fear. Of course I don't. But when I'm in fear, I am looking for evidence about that, thinking that if I can know more about it, I'll be less afraid, right? It works the opposite way, of course. And so that's the bad news. But the good news is that we can, just like that, just with the snap of your finger, I can decide to change my mind. It's my mind, after all. And I can change what I want to see. So I know I do not enjoy being in a state of fear. It feels awful. I don't like how I feel. And that is always my litmus test for stopping, getting quiet, and choosing once again, do I want to see a world of fear, or do I want to see a world through the eyes of love? And so when I choose to see the world through the eyes of love, then my thoughts, my perceptions, literally start seeing evidence of that all around me. Because, of course, it was already there. I had just missed it when I was very busy with the flying monkey thing, right? And so there is a quietness about letting myself perceive the love in everything, because I am now just receiving it. I'm not even having to really go do a lot of work to find it, because it's not hiding. Love never hides, right? We just don't see it. So in this time, which really is a time of disorientation between this new 500 shift that's coming to its tail end and the new Aquarian energy not quite with us yet, it can be very disorienting because we're all trying to find our ground. We're trying to find our feet. And we want to bring our spiritual principles out of any kind of la-la land or whatever. We want them to be practical, have practical use. And nothing is more practical than perceiving love in everything, because that's what we'll get back. And love is, of course, then the creative energy for anything worthwhile and new. So mark your calendars for these dates. Well, of course, the first one is the water sign of Scorpio. And remember, think of the element of your own sun or moon sign. Water, earth, air, fire, right? So the 14th of November was the new moon in Scorpio, and a lot of lightning strikes. And the tail of that dragon whipping around very sharply. Now, on December 14th, we have the full eclipse. You'd have to be in South America to really see the totality, but that will be in Sagittarius. That's also the day that the Electoral College meets in America. And it is loaded with Sagittarius because the sun, the moon will be in Sagittarius, and so will Messenger Mercury. So that Sagittarius is the pole vaulter and the philosopher king. And so it is the place of the higher mind. And so we really now get to use our smarts, so to speak. We get to use our wisdom to solve practical problems. And then we get just the perfect help that we need in a lunar eclipse in Gemini on November the 30th. So mark your calendar for that day. That's the full moon in Gemini. And in it, we have Venus, the goddess of love, being herself struck by lightning. And what is that? That means within our relationships, within the love that we feel for other people, we get a major wake-up call for love, for we instead of I, for the fact that all good things, all new inventions, in fact, everything is co-created. So Venus shows up to open our hearts a little more, and the lunar eclipse on November 30th has the message of being a fabulous archer. You know, Sagittarius is astrologically the archer. And so think of having a quiver full of arrows. And what you're learning here is, we all are, mastery over ego. That we see challenges are not simply awkward obstacles. They are tests for us to learn how to focus our minds, how to take charge of our thinking. And look what happens when an aggressive attitude goes away beyond feeling we have to always defend ourselves and fight in an attack mode. When we put down our fighting, when we realize the conflicts are literally about nothing, then we can take a step back and let Spirit lead the way. So let me leave you with a joyful shift in perception from fear to love that I was given this past week. You know, a lot of people have talked about in this pandemic of roughly 100 years ago in 1918 that killed approximately 50 million people worldwide, for the soldiers coming home from World War II brought it with them everywhere. And of course, just like the pandemic we're in now, which is not on that magnitude, but nevertheless devastating. And of course, pandemics end. And after the great restrictions and devastation of the 1918, what did we have? We had the roaring 20s. So I'm going to suggest that in a much lighter way, but equally celebratory, we are going to, during the Aquarian energy, we are going to somehow beat this coronavirus. And after all the restrictions and after all the difficulties of the new shift, the new 500-year shift, after all the economic devastation as well, we are going to be dancing in the streets and have our own version of relief and happiness of roaring 20s, only this time they're the roaring 2020s. I chose to watch the videos of people dancing in the streets, celebrating the Biden-Harris win. And I chose not to look at the videos of protesters bringing more violence into the world, the one thing we absolutely don't need. And so I share that with you because it is our choice. Here's a brief passage from a book entitled Choose Once Again. There is a light in you the world cannot perceive. And with the world's eyes, you will not see this light, for you're blinded by the world. Yet you do have eyes to see it. It's there for you to look upon. It was not placed in you to be kept hidden from your sight. This light is a reflection of the thought we practice now. To feel love within you is to see the world anew, shining in innocence, alive with hope, and blessed with perfect charity and love. Thanks for listening. And if you want to reach me, just email Judith at judithroyal.com. Bye for now.